Subscribe and click on the bell icon to be the first to see the latest videos.
Right. So one of the things that we've been wanting to talk about was in the area of wellness. In the context of employee engagement and experience, we often kind of disregard that topic. It's just yesterday, incidentally, was the commemoration day of the Bhopal gas tragedy. And I was talking to one of my very close advocate friends as to how much we disregard two things. One is our own health at times. And the second thing is when it comes to the business or the health of the business, we also disregard and put on the back burner what we call as business process continuity. And that's exactly what happened in the Bhopal gas tragedy. So that brought me to this thought as to I just thought, let me take this chance to have a quick chat with Yamini and try and understand what are her perspectives when we talk about health and wellness at the workplace.
Thank you so much, Harini. Good afternoon, everybody. And I'm glad I have this opportunity to at least share some of my thoughts or insights, or maybe even experiences, which is probably picked up as part of my journey. So, as Harini mentioned, we've been discussing, we've been in touch on and off, and we are very inspired with each other in terms of learning from each other's experiences. So, wellness is something which is very close to my heart, both as a person as well as an professional, because I do feel as HR professionals, we can influence the larger groups or organizations at large to ensure that we take them on the right path of wellness. Because, when we talk about wellness as a topic, it is not just about being fit. It is not just being about healthy. It is about the overall personality of an individual. And organizations today, a lot of them definitely feel that they are having their own fitness schedules, they go to gyms, they go for walks. At least a lot of us, even at the mid to senior level, do pick up habits like jogging or running or marathons. We do feel we are doing our bit for fitness, but when you talk about wellness, we do understand that it is an overall personality comprising of your physical fitness, your mental fitness, and emotional well-being. So a lot of organizations today are actually initiating their wellness programs, which are a well-rounded topics, picking up from all the three pillars which are very critical. In fact, some of the organizations are also adding the fourth pillar, which is the spiritual quotient, right? So we do have physical, mental, emotional, and the spiritual quotient when we talk about wellness as a topic. And I do feel we started the journey. Most of the organizations have started the journey in some way, but I do feel that we have a long way to go.
So physical is easy to do, isn't it? It's very easy. You can have health camps, you can have diagnostic camps, and you can have annual medical checkups, do a lot of analysis around that. In the manufacturing industry, I've experienced that the annual health checkup is one big key initiative that is done, and a lot of action plan emanates out of the analysis of those results. But talking of emotional wellness, a step beyond just the mental wellness, talking of emotional wellness, I find, from my experience, I find that is very difficult for a lot of organizations to really measure and also put some tangible initiatives in place through which they can drive certain results. That's what I've been feeling. So in my own way, I just want to share this as an experience. In my own way, I think to bring about emotional wellness, well-being in the workplace, what I used to do and that worked really well is, one is, first of all, start treating adults as adults. That's my favorite. I keep saying that at every time. The moment you start treating adults as adults, for everyone who understands transactional analysis, the moment you shift yourself away from a parent ego state or a child ego state, either way, and you start operating at an adult ego state, I think it goes a long way in getting people to emotionally connect. A lot of adult-to-adult conversations that I see people doing in my workplaces, they have resulted in a lot more better emotional well-being. And unknowingly, people start becoming a lot more emotionally balanced at the workplace because they start feeling a sense of trust and they start bringing their entire self to work. That is what is most important and emotional. The spiritual wellness to me is something which it amuses me a lot of times. The definition of what spiritual wellness is. So I would like to understand from you, what are your thoughts around that?
So spiritual wellness does not mean we do, sessions of spiritual gyan at office. What we actually look at is how some of these things which can have a positive influence on the personality, we try to encourage people to take it up based on their own personal interest, obviously. So I think I do see a lot of organizations picking up some of these things, like say maybe breathing exercises or listening to a good vibes kind of sessions where they actually get to think from different perspectives, or also in terms of actually giving them some kind of a path to understand that a spiritual balance is very important, especially considering the kind of stress all of us go through. If we don't find our own balance, it is definitely going to have an impact on the individual, both personally as well as on the professional front, right? So you were talking about the emotional connect. How many of us even talk to people, right? A lot of us are getting sucked into these schedules every day, right from the moment you leave your homes, getting caught in the traffic, to probably going there, attending calls back to back or meetings. It's almost like a checklist item on a day-to-day basis that we want to go work, come back home, and then we just don't do anything for ourselves a lot of times. We are happy if we get that 1 hour of peace in the evening. But what actually happens is an emotional wellness or spiritual wellness is where we encourage people to start talking. In fact, the previous session where it was talking about generations, right? We see a huge difference in the approaches that people take based on their age or experiences. A lot of middle-aged people suddenly start realizing that maybe, time is running out, or they are at a stage where they have to focus on some of these aspects. But younger generation who are probably glued to their screens, whether it is mobile or laptop, they can spend hours there in that corner. They may not even realize who's sitting next to them. So I think slowly we need to focus on things where we start encouraging people to talk to each other. That community feeling of building a bonding in the organizations is something which we need to address. And I think that those are the steps that we as HR should drive somewhere.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of my very recent LinkedIn post. This was more about, I was suddenly reminisced of my initial days in HR, where tug of war was a great game that we used to play at the workplace, so that, we felt it was a great community game, getting people together. And there used to be such a scramble for who has to be in whose team. We used to set up all rules saying this is between departments, between teams and all of that, but ultimately there used to be a scramble, and we used to let that scramble happen because that's a natural way the game progresses. And we noticed that people would want to be with the person who could tug the best. So I was just looking at it in today's social media world. Okay, we've forgotten physical games like that, which actually brought in a lot of emotional connect and a lot of bonding amongst people. Now we are into the social media, which has become a game, and from tugs of war, we have actually gone to the war of tags. So who are we tagging, and who are we getting tagged with on social media? That's kind of becoming the norm these days. So that's how, do you call it an evolution? is a question, yeah, which I often ask myself. But interestingly, that's how we are moving. And before I could realize, I am already in 3 forms of social media as of today. I wasn't on any till very recently. I was probably, I opened a LinkedIn account way back in 2004, and then it just stayed there. I did nothing with it. Then I opened Facebook because that's how I connected with a lot of lost people. But for the last 10 years, I took sannyas from Facebook as well. I found all of that meaningless. And I took to a lot of physical activity. So I do a jog, I do a lot of stuff which makes me go retro, and I started behaving younger. When I started behaving and feeling younger, I realized that I've started, like I said a few minutes ago, I've started gravitating towards a younger generation, and I found myself back on 3 social media platforms, right? So I'm actually wondering, where am I heading? Is it driving me towards wellness or not? So I was just wondering, would you want to dissect this thought of mine and throw some light on
So,
it?
incidentally, if you ask me, obviously we are also caught up in this web, and I'm also available on all the aspects of social media. But if you look at it from an individual perspective, I do feel most of this social media, unless you use it productively and positively, does not have any connection to your wellness in whatever forms it is. To a large extent, it might actually create or disrupt your well-being to a large extent, because again, connecting it back to the emotional well-being, a lot of youngsters or whoever it is, when you post something, we expect gratitude. A lot of people keep checking it, refreshing it multiple times to see whether there are any increase in number of likes. These are unintentional sometimes. These actions are, unconsciously we keep doing it. So what happens if there are not many likes as per our expectation? So somewhere it actually starts impacting and having a kind of negativity spreading into a person's well-being, where it starts disturbing them in some form, saying somebody else is more popular. The comparison starts, right? Where you're seeing a lot of people probably traveling around the world, somewhere, this is something which I also talk about a lot in the campuses, because the world today has somewhere is crossing the line between competing into comparison. When you start comparison, you're bound to be, disappointed in some way or the other, because there's no limit to the expectations that we set for ourselves. We are all superstars. So we are constantly looking at we being the best, we being perfect, we are having the perfect life. But when you start comparing, some way or the other, we are bound to find things which are probably not very good for ourselves, because somebody else is leading something else which is different and better. So competing, even in fact, when you look at it inside the organizations, when you look at it as people coming in from campuses in batches, you can't promote all of them together, right? But then that's where competing becomes more important than comparing. But people do end up doing it. So I do feel social media, when you talk about it, might have not a very positive impact on the wellness of any individual, because it's not giving you any kind of physical exercise or, kind of movements. Because I don't know, I think a lot of us forgot about any kind of sports after we left schools or colleges. We don't do it anymore, right? I mean, I was watching this movie called Chichore recently with my son. He had to go back 20 years into his past to actually tell about some competitive spirit, about a sporting event. But maybe when you look back at your professional lives in the past a few years, a few months, I'm sure none of us have anything to describe as an incident of, influence or something like an inspirational story to share. Because we are all running for our lives. It's like a rat race. A lot of us actually tend to pick up things more from our immediate influences than looking at a longer term goals of what is more important and what would be really good for us.
Yeah, so this is, so we've spoken a lot about what's really happening, but what are your thoughts around what we should do? Maybe HR is the right group of people who can actually make that difference. My role currently is not so much HR, so I'm taking a safe stand here. So what is it that HR professionals can do by way of keeping people more engaged in terms of engaging with themselves to be conscious and aware of health and wellness, specifically at the workplace, but it could be generally anywhere and everywhere. What is it that HR professionals can do as initiatives where this kind of an engagement comes?
So I do feel that a lot of organizations started focusing, especially I come from IQVIA, which is into healthcare consulting and information services. So we do focus a lot on healthcare. We are part of the complete patient journey right from the clinical trials to where we provide consulting solutions to industry. So wellness happens to be one of our focus areas, and I would say it is not just the responsibility of the HR department. When you talk about wellness, it has to be a multi-layered responsibility, both in terms of employee, in terms of managers, in terms of people who are running the business, the leadership team, and HR. HR are probably the change agents, ambassadors, or agent, who can actually drive or design programs. But, I recently also felt, or we were discussing, you can take the horse to the pond. You can't make it drink. Or first we need to understand whether the horse is actually thirsty, right? A lot of times we don't know what the horse is actually wanting. But we can design programs, we can drive them as HR, but I would feel a lot of this motivation or interest has to come from individuals and also department heads, because we like it or not, the stress is going to be part of our lives. And especially when I come from a commercial business kind of unit, there are timelines, there are constant pressures and stress of revenue numbers. We are constantly working with leadership team, and combine it with, when you go to meet clients, you are actually encountering hundreds of problems on the roads, right? So when you look at it from the overall perspective, stress is going to be there. As an individual, we need to learn where we draw the line. Okay. Apart from that, as an organization, wellness happens to be one of our focus areas. We started out our wellness program in 2018. 2019, we revamped the entire thing. As I mentioned, these 4 pillars are our most important focus areas. We built programs around it in terms of, addressing some of the aspects both from generations as well as the gender and diversity. Like what Sunika was mentioning, we have developed and built programs around women, because again, we understood the needs are completely different at different stages of life of women, whether people are looking at managing their entire childbearing years, or probably people who took break and wanting to come back. We have designed programs around that. And we do a lot of sessions, mostly in terms of sharing of knowledge, having counselors available for people. And we do have a regular schedule of yoga and Zumba sessions which are happening in the office premises. We encourage people to actually form teams and have challenges of maybe stepathon kind of a thing, where a group that scores more in terms of their footsteps actually competes with everybody across India and across the globe. So these are some of the programs which we drive very focusedly in some form or the other, because you really can't force somebody to come out of their project deadlines and get into a Zumba session, right? So we leave it to the individuals, but then as an individual, it becomes our responsibility to know where we need to understand the needs of our own personality and the body.
So, we can go on, knowing the 2 of us, we can go on and on and on. And I, like I said, since I come from a pharma background and I love hospitals, I'll have lots of stories to tell. I would like to take this chance again. We won't go to the fish bowl this time, because this being an informal chat, I would like to throw it open to the audience if you would like to have, if you have a story to share, if you have a thought to share, or a question. Yes, her hand went up first.
Building up our health and wellness program for our 10,000 plus employees. Regarding the emotional wellness, I wanted to ask do you think EAP services play an important role in bringing or in probably providing that emotional wellness kind of a platform to the employees?
So it does. I'm sorry, I didn't get you.
My name is Shruti.
Shruti. It does, because to people, especially as I told you, younger generation who would not like to speak to anybody as a person, they do feel these anonymous platforms do help them. When you have somebody available on phone, whether it is an external source or a counselor available whenever they feel the need for it, it does help. Because a lot of youngsters, we noticed, that would prefer to discuss with a stranger with an unbiased approach than discussing with their line manager or say HR or their family members. So it does help and give them a platform. But if you are asking us whether it has been effective, again, not many people might not do it because, somewhere they do feel the stigma of connecting some of these things, whether it will affect their personal, or professional career is something which is always there. So what we have also done is we have tried both the approaches, and it's not just at a current organization. This has been an approach right from last 10 years or so in different organizations that I've worked. We also bring in counselors. What happens is when you bring in a group of people together and just have chats with them in the organization, maybe even a 1 or 2 hour session, generally choose any topic and let them speak up, and then pick up somebody who want to have a separate session with the counselor who's available for an extended session. We have tried that approach also, which has worked better. Because what happens is, especially in a group, first, obviously, the first person who voices out is the challenge. But once somebody opens up, people tend to, it becomes a dynamo effect, so that at least people tend to open up and share. That has helped a lot in emotional aspects. Apart from that, especially when there are specific incidents, we have had even these group counseling or grief counseling kind of sessions within the organization. To a large extent, during those sessions, though it is not connected directly with the incident, people have opened up about something else which is bothering them. So I do feel we can only create opportunities for interactions, but then encourage people to open up and speak. That is going to definitely help you.
When I'm just trying to break certain barriers of organizations when we talk of, especially the topic of mental health and wellness. Like Yamini said, there's always a fear of consequence when anything is done within the organization on a very formal platform. But this is my personal opinion, and I've been practicing it for the last 1.5 years, and it is giving me tremendous amount of satisfaction and fulfillment. No matter who I interact with in what forum or what platform, I make a very open personal commitment to them that if you feel like talking to somebody, reach out to me. Especially the student community. I do a lot of, I spend most of my weekends, same as her, most of our weekends we spend at some of the other campus, like I said, or hospitals. So my approach to students is only this, that do not end this relationship here with a guest lecture or a conclave. It goes way beyond that. And I think the best way people like us who have gathered years of experience and we have kind of gone through a lot of it, one commitment each one of us can make is whoever wants to reach out to us, at least try and impact 5 people in a period of time. Make a SMART goal there of how many people you can connect, because answering one question could prevent them from taking a drastic step. It has worked tremendously well for me. I've been able to connect with about 250 students in the last year or so, and they are in touch with me. Last night, I had a student who was talking to me about something he wanted to do. He called me up around 12:30 in the night. It's okay with me because I sleep 3 hours, but whatever suits, it's a request. If each one of us can make a commitment to ourselves to impact at least 5 people in the next year or so, I think that'll set a wave where people will not have a fear of consequence when they're speaking to someone outside the organization. Just wanted to add that as
just
a
also
personal
wanted to
experience.
add just quick one more point. What we also tell people, or I personally believe, is that it is not necessary that HR has to be there everywhere, or line managers are equipped or trained to handle some of these things. But what we can do as individuals is find your own personal influencer, whoever it is. Because if that person can make a difference in the way you think, or the way you can probably change your lifestyle to bring in wellness or fitness into your life, one positive change can actually change the way you think about the entire life. So it's not necessary that it needs to be your HR, it needs to be your, somebody from your organization. It could be anybody who can influence you in those aspects.
So we had one question. Shall I take the gentleman first? Yeah, so we'll come back to you, but we'll take his question.
Hi, I'm Rahul. I'm from TVS Credit. A quick catch up, in fact, very quickly, because I'm kind of a person who believes in understanding every human aspect. So we started a sort of, TVS being an organization where when I started this joining, it was around 7 years with them. I was around 62, I gained around 65. The reason behind it was the kind of food, snacks, people started saying, I have a colleague of mine, Joginder there, we still believe that we go to TVS, you keep gaining weight, right? From the leadership team onwards, yeah. We started having this as a concept that we should start something called as a TVS CS Fit camp. So we tried this for past 3 years, 4 years. We wanted to start this off somehow. So it was just before 3-4 months, we being in, not only in HR, but from IT, from other finance departments, we started off with a small group. It's just a 5-member group as of now, right? And in fact, they started something called as a TVSCS run. So every day in the morning, so it's around 5:30 in the morning, people start jogging. And they posted in the group saying that we have run so many kilometers. Yeah. So what is happening is I'm just sharing this as an experience, in fact, where people started, the people who started are around 100 plus in the group, right? So we started this and we are able to find around 15 people who have joined this group as of now from 5, right? And they are not HRs. That's the best part of it. So I normally believe that it's not only HR who actually takes it up, it is every individual in the organization who should take it up. Good thing that we need to also have somebody, the activity when we started off. When you had the kind of a noise, we had a lot of people coming closer, right? So there should be some effect there in an organization which brings you closer. So I guess you should help us out with some thought, what could be that element that we could actually think of?
Yeah.
Quickly to add, when I said wellness initiative, though it was designed and drafted by us, we actually found volunteers coming from the employee groups. Unless you have the buy-in from the people who can, push this initiative from the ground level, you won't be able to do it. Especially when you look at it as an organization, IQVIA has about 13,000 employees in India. So you can't run it. A team of 200 HR people cannot actually drive this initiative or agenda across the locations. So you need people or volunteers or champions who can drive this agenda for you across this. So don't burn yourself if you're into HR. Make sure that you influence or create people who can take it forward for you. That is going to be the biggest challenge. Second thing, since you brought up the topic of cafeteria, let me tell you the first thing that our wellness committee did was remove all the cookies and, the chips and everything that was, or peanuts, everything that was available for people who were sitting late. We removed all that and tried replacing it with things which were a little more healthier, negotiated with the caterer to bring in food which is probably more healthier and nutritious. So had multiple layered approach towards addressing this problem from all angles.
So I have a slightly different take on this. I also strongly believe that HR is not required to drive any of these initiatives whatsoever, because that is not what HR was ever meant to do. Somehow that is what HR has become. We've started drawing rangolis and decorating the office with balloons. That was never what was meant for us to do. I think what was meant by an human resource profession is how you manage your resources in your organization so that they start managing people well. So in a way, your organization should, of course, hierarchy, organization charts, all that is required. You need certain controls in place. But if your organization transforms the way they work within those hierarchies as self-managed groups, I did that in one of the workshops here. I think Sherry was there. So if you start working as self-managed groups, within those groups, there will be bonding. There are no hierarchies there. Everyone is there for each other. So there is no fear of consequence. There is an extreme sense of trust which is flowing top, down, bottom, up, diagonal, horizontal, all directions. The moment you have trust in place within those self-managed groups, work gets managed anyways, because there's always someone supporting the other. And when you know that there's always someone supporting you when it comes to the deliverables, then obviously a lot of care for each other also comes in place. And if you ask me personally, that is an experience that I did within my team when I was CHRO in a multinational till recently. The way that team is bonding or remains bonded even now, when it comes to taking care of each other's health, be it physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. It's come a long way. At one point of time, I was in the deepest of depression very recently for whatever reason. But the person who brought me out of that was an intern whom I had absorbed as a management trainee. So a 22-year-old who brought me, a 46-year-old, out of that depression speaks volumes about how self-managed groups without hierarchies can also do the trick. Yeah. So we'll take your question now, ma'am.
So just adding to what you guys discussed, in SEAT, because wellness is something that now organization is focusing on. So in SEAT, we like 6 months back we launched certain wellness program. So now we have a dietitian and a nutritionist on board who actually went to all plants, all sales location and spread an awareness. So now if I'm eating, there is a Komal, ye nahi khana hai, it's not good for health. So now an employee is taking care of an employee to ensure that what's healthy. Apart from that, we had created cohorts. So basically, our first cohort was marathon because we identified there are many people who are running. So there are cohorts across the location. There's a competition that's internally happening. So that's where the bond has created. Apart from running, we have for music, bands and various cohorts that's been created. And the third thing that we have added, it's a care, which is an external vendor where we have tied up with them. People can get in touch with them if they want to speak with or get consulted from somebody. It could be counseling, and that's extended to your families and your friends also. So anybody can approach to them and it can work. So this has really worked well, where we have just spread an awareness and the employees are taking care of each other. So we had to just do a drive to that.
Fantastic. That's wonderful. So I think we are, yeah, one last, yes.
Hi, my name is Kamal Talukani, I'm from TNA. So looking, just hearing the conversation, one aspect that, probably I want to share as a thought is, we spoke about social media, and yes, like every coin has two sides. And one aspect is, yes, probably today's generation, too much into social media, and as man said that, people are addicted to a point wherein, the person sitting next to you don't even realize. But if channeled properly, because in today, it's also a means of information, right? And when you see social media, there are a lot of influencers, the term that has come up, right? So whether it's for fashion or whatever, for fitness as well. I see a lot of people getting influenced and getting into fitness because of social media, right? So people put in their journeys as well and make, a YouTube video or probably a series out of it. So, you have a lot of examples like Beer Biceps, and you have your Guru Man and whatever, okay? So I just want to, put in this perspective as well that yes, it is upon us how we channelize it. If it has the power to do bad, it also has the power to do good, because that is a medium which can be easily accessed, to a lot of people, okay? Because, not everybody has the resources to get into, personal trainer, and I guess fitness is one thing where, there are a lot of myths around it, right? Ye karna chahiye, wo nahi karna chahiye, things like that. I think somewhere social media, if there is a right influencer, okay, so it would also be a means of, helping a lot of people as well. So I just want to put across that point.
Very well said. And with that note, we will close this chat and move on further, because thanks, you actually justified my presence on social media. So I'm going home a happy person today.
Good job, Dan.
Thank
Just
you
one
so
last point. My boss is so much into all this. In fact, he's the one who drives it. He's a managing director, and he drives it. So it comes right from the top that we need to drive these agenda. So he always tells us only one thing: be extremely mindful about what you put into your mouth and what you put into your mind. I think that is going to solve a lot of problems in terms of wellness.
Also be mindful of what you put on social media. All right, so thanks. It was wonderful having a chat with you, Yamini.